Good morning, welcome to my gardening. It's Deborah, and today one of the little jobs I'm having to deal with are geraniums that you can pick up out of any garden centre. The only problem is when they're in this sort of size, they're not very good to actually mature for use in the summertime. So you've got to pull these out and very gently pot them up. The pots I'll be using are just these, just a size up, so the roots have got somewhere to grow, somewhere to extend. To remove them from the pots, you've got holes in the bottom. A pencil that has no end or broken end, just gently push underneath and it just breaks the pot, hopefully. And that's how the roots are with these. I'll take a couple out. Again, just very gently push up from underneath. Break the circuit if it will come. There we are. Nice crop of roots. Put those to one side. With these pots, all you do, put the compost to one side, give it a little shake, and then with one finger make a hole in the pot. Drop it in and very gently give it a little shake. Put it to one side. When you've done them all you need to worry about is giving them a good drink. So it's just a simple hole that fits straight in the size of your finger. Gentle pot. There we go. Occasionally in these seedlings you'll end up with one looking like this. It's actually two plants or two seeds that are put inside together. And if you're very careful, you can just very carefully tease them apart. And hopefully, as you can see, I've got roots on both. So instead of having one, I've now gained an extra plant. Just gently rock it in, put the finger down and gently just push it down. Show you again. The mix I'm using is an ordinary multi-purpose compost. I add a little bit of sharp sand into it, a little bit of fish blood and bone, mix it up so it just gives a bit more than just what you can buy in the shops. The final part with them is making sure you've got some water. And for me, I always make sure in the winter time I've always got the watering can in the greenhouse with water in it, because it actually then brings it up to the temperature within the greenhouse, so you're not shocking the plants with cold water straight from the tap. It's very simple, and they'll be quite happy like that on the bench. Right, once I've finished in the greenhouse, I shall be back out in the garden, because at the moment I'm part way through redesigning it to extend the lawn sideways. I've increased the size of the patio by adding an extra line of slabs. So rather than just having these, the first 3 slabs from the house, from the step, I've added this one. Now that gives more space on the top here, but I've got to extend the lawn sideways. The problem with the property here is when it was built, they built the soil and the back garden on a slope. Not very good if you want to use the soil and your lawn to relax on in the summertime. So I built a wall over 10 years ago, and over this last winter I've been extending it. That end, pushing it out and pushing it along. So now the weather's starting to improve, I will be getting the final lot of material in to finish it off, which is part of it will be 2 ton of topsoil to go in and literally level the lawn out. To actually level the lawn, it's going to have to start from back here and take it right across, taking all that in to try and bring this corner of the lawn up. It sank, unfortunately, as I was doing it during the intervening years. But also, while I've been working on there, I've had to move some of the plants that were growing there. One of which is my lovely tree just here that is actually starting to bud very nicely for the spring, but it's top heavy, so how do you keep it from falling over? Very simple. I've used just ordinary heavy duty garden wire, but I've put it into 3 places. One is down to an old railway chair, 2 is on the apple tree at the back. and the third one is on the tree in the corner, allowing the base to move in the wind. The main reason for altering this, the path straight in front of you, the first few slabs up to the trellis, and then these next 6 that go sideways, the first path went straight down where I'm standing and dropped down to the lower part of the garden. But I need to extend the lawn and make the lawn bigger. So I've had to lift all these slabs, move the wall that was down this side, take it all out, and most of the bricks all the bricks have been reused in that wall on that side. But I've had bushes down here next to the lawn. They've all had to come up all the way. As I say, I've shown you the first one. That was moved August last year. I moved that one. Fortunately, it wasn't too warm when it got moved. All these have been pulled over. Some of, as I say, I've had to go into parts, as you can see. But one of the big ones I've had to dig out from just about where I'm standing now, is now in the corner. I was worried whether or not the roots would actually retake, because it lost over half its roots because they'd spread out under the path and into the lawn. But as we can see, it's taken. The catkins on it are growing beautifully now. So with the soil that it's now in, it's sitting there quite happily, growing, hopefully for the summer. Just to keep it here, I use it in that position as a sort of a windbreak, but also for privacy. Because I've lifted this end of the lawn up, this end of the garden, you get to a point where you start looking over your neighbour's garden into their garden. That is being placed in that angle, in that position, to stop that. So you don't actually look into your neighbour's garden. They can't see into here. That's basically why it's being done. And the bushes are gently being planted to fill in down the side to gain the privacy, so you don't have people looking in or you're looking into other people's gardens. We're now in the lower part of the garden, bottom behind the wall. The lawn is above my right, and now this is the lower section. Down here I have 2 cherry trees. Unfortunately, they had to be lifted and reset because the soil level down here was higher. Another reason for moving some of the soil up out of the way. So I dropped them down, dug them out and pushed them back in. And these are both taken again because this one, which is a Morello cherry, is actually shooting nicely. So there should be a nice crop on there for this season. In doing what I've done down the bottom here, in lifting the soil, putting this extension in the wall, I'm going to set it to make like a hidden garden. Put bark down in the end, and on this side set it up to make a raised bed. I'll be able to grow rhubarb in here and 1 or 2 other vegetables because it'll be lifted up, and it's also sheltered, which is the main thing, to keep it nice and sheltered. Also with the railway sleepers that I will be using in this area, it'll tidy all this area up, smarten that up. I've got the bottom of the apple tree. The reason for the apple tree being placed where I've placed her, she's been here a long time, as you can tell by the trunk. It's to stop you just walking off the lawn, walking over the wall and dropping down a big gap. But it's also decorative. As you can see, she's been set so she runs along wires, and you get a nice crop of blossom in the spring and apples in the autumn time, all the way across. But it needs to be made tidier at the bottom. One of the jobs I've got to do today is replace this one. She's in the way. She's right where you want to walk. Now I've got an area to move her to, so it'll be time now to remove her from this spot. One of the problems I have with the soil here in Northamptonshire is ironstone. I've got a nice piece of ironstone in my hand. The other problem I've always had is blue clay. So lovely combination to work with when you're trying to sort your plants out, which types you need in the garden, which will work, which don't. But I've moved my lovely can't think what it's called now, tree from one end of the garden to this end because she's going to live just here It's going to fill this corner in, and it's going to open up the other side of the garden. But I've dug the hole. You can't just put it back in, put it in with the soil. You have to give it something, some nutrients, allow it to work, let the roots start moving back out again, because I've upset it. It's like having a heart transplant when you move a tree. So, are you gonna? Thank you. What I have, again, is just ordinary compost that you can get out of any wholesaler's DIY place. Put a nice layer in the soil. As you can see, first thing you do is lay it in, a good layer on the bottom. Work. And then pick her up. The hardest thing at this point is deciding how you want the tree. It has two faces. It has a face that's towards the wall, more like a north face, and you also have another side where you get the sun on it and it grows in the sun. All trees will always grow to the sun. They may look all the way round, but when you look at them, there's more growth on the side that's towards the sun. Now, she's in pretty much where I want her. In fact, she's not quite in the right spot. Move her around. There. So she's now been relocated and turned in the direction I want her to grow. But again, I've got the roots down there. They've got no real support. They're not happy. So the first thing I carry on doing is still putting some of the first, ordinary compost around the roots. This gets inside the roots and fills the gap up. Just lets them hold themselves for a few minutes, rather than doing it with my hand. Use a spade, push it in, and gently move it around. Give the tree, whatever it is, a little shape. It allows this compost to go down and fill the gaps in between the roots. I say, topsoil, but for where I am in this part of the garden, having moved the topsoil, it's a little bit more like subsoil. It's a lighter colour, it's not dark, it's not rich. To get it a nice shade, a nice rich soil, you have to feed it. And a lot of the soil, every time I work on it, I feed it. I put in manure, I put in sand, I put in fish blood and bone. Every time, twice a year. Or even more if I've got a section I've got to redo. That way the soil is nourished. The plants have food to work with. People I've heard, oh, I've put some fertiliser on the ground. When? About 6 years ago. And they can't understand why the plants don't grow. It's like a person. You have to feed it. You have to give it all the nourishment. At the end of this, I will have a compost bin, and all the nice areas, all the stuff that will rot down will end up in that. It goes into compost. I can use it on any part of the garden, even the lawn. Sieve through it, get the big stuff out, and you can rake it into the lawn like a top dress and fill any holes in. Right. Let's just gently push the soil in. Don't need your spade for this bit. Just use your feet. You've got to push it down anyway. Lock the soil in. Push it down with your foot. It's all nice and loose. I think that's starting to hold now. Now, as I said, I've had to move plants and put them into pots. Some of the plants have managed to survive the winter. Unfortunately, this conifer hasn't. The frost got into her and it's actually basically starting to kill this one plant. So unfortunately, this one will not be put back in the garden, because conifers, once they die, they don't regrow. They cannot grow on dead wood. They can only grow when the wood is green. So I'm slowly working now in the soil from the little log burner I have, the ashes in there. Tea bags is also some I throw into the soil. They rot into the ground, they fertilise the ground, they give some nutrients back into the ground. You've had a cup of tea out of them, now the plants can finish the job off and take all the nutrients and let them grow. This will all be done in topsoil. These three will be, well, 4 will be put in the placed roughly where they're sitting at this minute in time, and hopefully in a few weeks this will all be grass seeded and it will start growing, so hopefully it'll look a nice tidy garden for the summertime. Thank you for watching. Enjoy. Hopefully see you again.